A pretty good litmus test for any project in cryptocurrency is how much buzz it's getting in terms of the conversation, in terms of how many mentions. And right now, just anecdotally speaking, but I think it still counts for something. As far as the chatter goes, everybody on X in a big way is talking about Ondo, O-N-D-O. Obviously, this isn't a meme coin. It's not a hype coin. Rather, it's a project that was recognized by, in fact, the White House Digital Asset Report on the 30th of July. This is a serious project. And if you go over, I'm sure, your X timeline, you're going to see some of the same reasons that we've identified. Four very strong reasons, rock solid reasons, actually, why Ondo is set to absolutely explode in 2025. Welcome to the channel. My name is Maddie, and this is Altcoin Buzz. All the best of luck if you choose to invest. Maybe that's into Ondo, maybe that's into some other RWA projects, maybe that's into something else entirely. Whatever the case may be, I genuinely do wish you well. But just remember, I am not a financial or investment advisor, nor is this video official financial or investment advice. All right, so let's get right into it. Reason number one to be super bullish about Ondo in 2025 is that White House digital report that I mentioned. In that report, they talk about ONDO. This is the biggest news. It's also the most recent news. So Ondo Finance was specifically highlighted in that July 2025 White House report on digital assets as a leading example of a real-world asset or an RWA tokenization within the decentralized finance DeFi sector. President Trump's working group on digital asset markets recognized Ondo for pioneering efforts in bringing regulated, yield-bearing traditional assets, such as U.S. Treasuries, onto blockchain networks. We also recently saw that Binance announced Wall Street is coming to BNB chain. So we have over 100 tokenized U.S. equities, but also ETFs and funds that are coming to BNB chain via Ondo Finance. That's what connects everything here, and thus gives users massive access to traditional market liquidity. This is huge. It's a major milestone for, I would argue, the industry, but certainly for Ondo. And this is certainly going to attract a lot of people that have been at arm's length when it comes to crypto, their exposure to crypto. This is going to be very inviting, and it sets a very strong precedent in terms of what can be done. And the RWA space in general, I think, is a validation as a result of this development. Reason number two in general is just the boom that we're seeing in terms of real-world assets, specifically the tokenization of real-world assets. It's not just a narrative, it is actively happening. Here we have Larry Fink, the CEO, of course, of BlackRock. Just listen to yourself what he said.
But crypto is going to play a big role. The digitization of currency, digitization of everything we're doing. I'm a big believer, and this is one thing that will change Bloomberg even. I believe we're going to be in the cutting edge of tokenizing bonds and stocks. Coming. And we have the technology now. The fact that we are now moving forward in tokenization, every bond and stock, is crazy. Yeah. We should be moving towards that frontier. Obviously, there's winners and losers and all that, but we need to be prepared for the tokenization. And it would democratize more finance if we tokenized bonds and stocks.
And then, of course, Ondo is the leader when it comes to this. They're leading the charge by a pretty wide margin, actually. Since launching in 2023, Ondo's tokenized U.S. Treasury products have surpassed already $1.4 billion in volume. That's according to Masari. That represents a very impressive metric. And their products, specifically USDY, it offers a 4.25% yield backed by real-world U.S. Treasuries that are on-chain, meaning that everyday investors really anywhere in the world can access US dollar yield without needing a US bank account. Now, as RWA adoption grows, Ondo's position with this context only gets stronger. The next big reason to be bullish about Ondo in 2025 is institutions and the hype surrounding ETF, exchange-traded funds. Institutions are positioning themselves right now really before the rest of the market wakes up. Obviously, they represent the smart money. 21 Shares, for example, has officially filed for an Ondo ETF with the SEC. That's the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. And that represents a clear signal that really institutional grade products are on the way. Ondo already has strategic partnerships that are the envy of the sector. BlackRock, of course, helped Ondo issue its OUSG tokenized US Treasury bills. And ONDO is in BlackRock's Biddle Fund as well. It's not just ETF filings either, though, because, of course, Binance US is listing Ondo with trading that started on July 23rd. Coinbase Ventures is already an early backer as well. And let's not forget that Ondo is also integrated across major networks like Solana for faster RWA transactions, also the XRPL, the XRP ledger, thus enabling TradFi access, and Alchemy Play, which is bridging fiat to crypto with global payment rails. In brief, this just positions Ondo very well as the infrastructure layer that connects traditional finance to newly available on-chain capital markets. And reason number 4 here to be super bullish about Ondo Finance in 2025 is just the legislation that we're seeing, the approval, which has now been passed into law. So specifically the Clarity Act and the Genius Act. And I would have to say that this is probably the most important variable when it comes to potentially supercharging Ondo's future. Because both the Clarity Act and the Genius Act were just passed in the United States House. These are not just symbolic wins, they very much standardize and reshape how crypto is regulated. The Clarity Act, for example, finally separates blockchain infrastructure from tokens, allowing mature or decentralized projects to be treated as commodities under CFTC oversight. And then the Genius Act goes even further by protecting developers and innovators who are building in crypto from unnecessary regulatory threats. So this means less SEC fear, more room for innovation, and a regulatory green light when it comes to compliant RWA platforms, just like Ondo. Right now, only Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano qualify officially for CFTC treatment, but Ondo is EVM compatible, it's decentralizing, and is already working with regulated assets, like I mentioned, US Treasuries via OUSG. So conceivably, once it meets decentralization thresholds, it could be the next one to qualify. This, of course, would open the door to Forex, to bonds, and sovereign assets being tokenized on Ondo. So with regulation finally catching up to crypto, Ondo is a project right now that's in a prime position to benefit not just as a speculative asset, but as a compliant, that's very important, scalable RWA protocol. And just to wrap up the video here, I'll provide some of my closing thoughts. We're looking at really an up and down pattern over the course of the last 4 weeks. ONDO is only up 10% in the last month. It was up as much as 60%, but it's down now along with the rest of the market. It is quickly becoming the go-to protocol for tokenized capital markets. We're looking at a $2.7 billion market cap. That's certainly not a small project, not by any means, but it's just got so much more room to grow. When you look at the ambitions of Ondo, when you look at their partnerships, when you look at the space, if you extrapolate and you look at the way the space itself is expected to grow, I really don't see why Ondo can't do a 10x, a 15x, maybe a 20x, possibly not this cycle, in terms of the higher range of that prediction, but beyond, I think certainly. If you believe in trillions of dollars coming on chain soon, you should probably get yourself a piece of that market, and Ondo is just the best exposure that you can get within cryptocurrency.